but I'll speak anyway. Just a brief introduction to how, who we are as speakers. My name is Aparajita Sengupta, and I'm a full-time farmer. And Dr. Madhumala Sengupta has helped us put together this paper and presentation. Deval Majumdar is my husband. He is not here today. And I'll be speaking about this little effort that we have made in Kolkata in the form of community-supported agriculture farm, and how we believe that food systems are really vital in addressing the situation that we face today. Now, first of all, in all this talk about environmental pollution, all this talk about impact on the environment, we somehow, we address these issues as if we're outsiders to this problem, that it's a problem out there for somebody with time and money to solve. And us here, you young people out there, we do not have a part to play in it at all. It is for policymakers to address, it is for government fundings to take care of, and there is nothing that we can do to ensure that our beautiful planet indeed survives. We are in the throes of a sixth mass extinction. Thousands and thousands of species are going extinct every single day. And this is not a joke. This is our reality. And as we look forward to a future, we have to take into consideration the fact that we have put our future generations into a lot of trouble. When we think of ourselves as parts of these problems, we have to take into consideration that our basic needs, the need for water, air, and food, our basic needs have been polluted. All of us over here are quite aware that our food is polluted, right? We know that it's been laced with pesticides. We've seen Satyamev Jayate earlier this year. We know that there's so much of fertilizer and pesticide being used that it's harming our bodies. That's the beginning. But then it's also harming our environment more than it has ever been harmed before. Mankind has farmed for 10,000 years. And we've been using pesticides for 60 years. And quite successfully, there's been a brainwashing going on that tells us that stop putting these things and we'll all starve. And we believe that. All of us to a certain extent, we believe that all this talk about organic farming, all this talk about saving the environment and caring about our seas so that we don't dump pesticides into the sea, we don't dump so much fertilizer into the sea that there are dead zones, thousands of square miles across, all over the ocean. We think that it's a big joke because it's for fancy farmers like myself to take up organic farming. It's not the truth. It will never solve the problems of the world. And then there's this huge world population. Oh my goodness, we'll all die if we farm the way we did for 10,000 years. Right? So we'll have to think about it because these are problems that are confronting us every single day. It's not about jargon. It's not about the government. It's not about anyone else. It's about you and me to confront and address these issues. So how do we do that? I wasn't a farmer, of course. I was not born a farmer. I didn't ever want to be a farmer. But how did I end up being a farmer? First of all, I would like to talk about the community-supported agriculture project that we're running right now. It's a small farm. It supports only 30 families. Yeah, it supports only 30 families. And I believe, a lot of us who are involved in this project believe, that this contains within itself the solutions for a better world. How? And a lot of this is ideology, of course. A lot of this is theory and not practice. But there might be some truth in it. First of all, when we talk about sustainability, as I was saying, that most of the time we're thinking that it's some elite person planting trees out there. It's not me. It's not, how I move, dress, talk, or think that can affect the environment. But if we are to talk about population population all the time, then it must be the population that's affecting the environment in some way, right? And the connection should be out there for us to see and recognize, but we choose not to look at the minor details of our lifestyles that affect the environment every single day. Industries are polluting water bodies because we are buying the products. That is the truth, right? The bottom line is that as consumers, we are contributing every single day to the destruction of our planet. Because there isn't a single object on this planet that can be made without the help of the environment. You know, in some way it is related to the environment, in some way it comes out of the environment, from a forest, from underneath the ground, from some mineral, from some plant produce, you know, in some form it is related to nature, because we are not making objects out of thin air. And as we make these objects, we are impacting the environment. And as we are making more and more objects, we're impacting the environment more and more. So how we live, you know, whether or not you live in a house that's built of natural materials, or whether or not you live in a house that's made of cement that causes a lot of industrial pollution, is how environmental pollution is related to our lifestyles, our livelihoods. And in many cases, I believe that the choices that we make as individuals can bring about a difference in the environment. Because how we live, whether or not we live in air-conditioned houses, whether or not we're consuming more or consuming less, whether or not we're moving in public transport or, you know, consuming more fossil fuels by taking opting for private transportation. All that has an impact on the environment. So every single aspect of our lifestyles will affect the environment. And the choices we make there have to, come to have a very important effect on overall pollution as a whole. Now, in this study, it talks about how community-led sustainable living can help the environment. So in developing cooperative purchasing groups, people buying directly from producers does a number of things. First of all, and this really doesn't have much to do with the environment, but it does with the economy, the fact that if you're buying directly from the producer, you are cutting out the people in the middle. We hear a lot of talk about how that's taking up the price of products. So if we are thinking in terms of a direct producer-buyer relationship, I really hate the word consumer. I mean, we are better than, you know, and the word consumer always evokes to me a kind of an organism that eats through objects. We are eating through our environment. We are not consumers, we are better than that. We are mothers, we are educators, right? We have individual personalities. We have been reduced to consumers. That is the only identity that we associate ourselves with. So, as I was saying, that if the producer can come in direct contact with the buyer, that does a number of things. First of all, I talked about the people in the middle. Secondly, I would like to talk about how that eliminates the need for transportation. A lot of our food is transported needlessly around the country, around the world. If we are to eat what is in season and what is produced in native conditions without the help of chemical additives, then we are helping out the environment in a big way. In the United States, the average dinner item travels 1,500 miles to get to one's table. I would say that's completely unnecessary. We have soil beneath our feet. So it's absolutely absurd that if you stand in an interstate in the United States, you will see that from one direction trucks are carrying objects, you know, from here to there, and the very same trucks carrying the very same products are going the other way. So we are getting into a lot of mindless transportation when it comes to food. So if our food comes from close to us, as close to us as possible, if we make that a conscious decision, then we are cutting out transportation. We are cutting out energy consumption, and we are reducing pollution, right? So if 10,000 trucks come to Calcutta every single day, and you are able to grow partially some of the food that you eat close to you, if you can get that from close to you, then some of those trucks will stop coming. So that is the point in focusing on community-based sustainable agricultural models. These are some of the aspects that were integrated in this model, and urban vegetable gardens are a part of it. Now, I really won't get into the detail of how food production affects our environment, how pesticides are getting into our oceans, how fertilizers are creating amoeba colonies that are so big that they're disrupting every other form of life in the oceans. How the very production of those petrochemical additives that are used in agriculture are polluting the environment in their production. So while these are being made, they're polluting the environment. While they're being transported, they're polluting the environment. While they're being applied on the fields, they're polluting the environment. So there's no end to in how many ways we can pollute the world if we continue to stick to these models. So it seems strange, but by making significant choices about what we eat and how we eat, we can have very significant impacts on the environment. Sustainability, as I've just said, is greatly dependent on food consumption, its production, food waste management, and hence in community. I'll touch a little bit upon the subject of food waste management because we are in Calcutta and we literally wade through the trash here every single day, day in and day out. We look away, we try to ignore how much trash we're producing. Why is there so much stress? First of all, because of the plastic, but also because a lot of our food is going into the waste. And they are not being degraded, they're not getting mixed up with the soil and becoming soil as they ideally should. Urban farming setups, because they do not seek help from chemical additives, often look to food waste. You cannot compost a chocolate pastry, of course, but you can compost potato peels, for example. So by integrating the waste that people produce with their food production, the way it was meant to be, right? What you're eating is what nourishes your body. What you're throwing away from that food is what should nourish the ground. And it's not. It's merely being wrapped up in plastic packets and being added to a garbage heap that grows bigger and bigger and bigger every single day. So there's a very effective way of integrating food waste into urban farming systems that help reduces urban waste. The CSA movement sort of began mostly in urban and semi-urban areas because a few people were dissatisfied with the quality of food we are getting, and I guess that's true for many people here. We know that our food is laced with pesticides. It has, things that we do not want to ingest. We are aware of the number of health problems that it's been causing, but we really do not see a choice. So a few people said that, let's get together, let's start farming. Let's see what happens. Let's try and farm with traditional methods, and let's see if that's effective in producing vegetables that will nourish us, that will not contain poison. And they were successful. The CSA movement has been immensely successful in Europe. It has been immensely successful in the United States, where now there are literally thousands of CSAs all around the country, where family farms grow their own food and they sell their excess to a group of members. So that, and they would often have these waste exchange systems where you collect your vegetable waste and bring it back to your farmer to be composted and put back into the soil, reducing the need for fertilizers from outside. So the CSA, it's community-supported agriculture. So it's about sharing your risks. It's about partnership. It is about community. It is about a space where parents and children can come together and be involved in the production of food. So community concerned with health, about the ecology, and about families and fun, as I said. we know about food democracy. It is about your right to food and your right to choose what you will put into your body. That, by the way, is a real picture from the farm from this season. That's part of what we produced. That's actually my daughter out in the farm when we just started on the farm. So our farm, we don't have land. We borrowed land on what is called a land share agreement from somebody we knew, and we're working on that piece of land right now. We have a little over 20 members, and we deliver vegetables to them every week. The great part about being a CSA is that we are not tied to the market. It does not affect us if, onions are 2,500 rupees a kilo. We produce our onions, they're always the same price. So low technology, low energy, low input, intercropping and various natural farming methods that help us reduce costs and sort of put this to farmers as an effective model for agriculture. We do not depend on charity because charity is not sustainable, once again. Funding in whatever form it comes makes you depend on that monetary source. It does not prove that you're effective. We run ourselves. We make very small profits, but we indeed do run ourselves. So, to sum up, a community-supported agricultural farm can help people come together and grow their own food. Typically in CSAs, people can exchange, the fact that they have to pay a membership can be exchanged with labor. So you come down to the farm, provide your labor for a certain number of hours, and your vegetables will come free. We are currently working with a set of experienced farmers, but as I said, I do work the land myself. It's been a very satisfying experience, and I would like to point out that if we are to have more CSAs around the city, it helps to do a number of things. It helps to have a very positive effect on the environment. Thank you. Nowadays, sustainability is imparted to the students theoretically. Is it the right way to implement sustainability? First of all, sustainability is not an idea. We have to realize that we are beyond peak oil. In the United States, the petroleum production peaked in the 1970s. Worldwide, petroleum production has peaked in 2009-2010. What that translates to is not that we will run out of oil in the next 5 years, but it does mean that we have used up about half of what we had. So we are heading into an energy disaster because you need energy to extract energy. In the 1970s, if people spent 1 barrel of oil, they would get 120 barrels of oil. Nowadays it's 12. So after a point it would become meaningless to try and extract petroleum anymore. So even though if we have it, we don't have the energy to extract it. So sustainability is a concern for everybody and anybody. It is not theoretical. It is about the air you and I breathe. Majority of India comprises of a lower income class, and the purchase of organic food is expensive. Okay, I get the point. Now, first of all, I don't believe that organic food should be expensive. Inputs are less for organic farming. The reason why organic food is expensive is because, we used to farm without chemical pesticides for such a long time, and then suddenly somebody played a cruel joke in the middle saying that we can't survive until we use this. And then now we're saying that, we should eat organic, but only a small section of the people should have access to it. I believe that chemical-free food is everybody's right. And unless we can make it that way, it will remain an elite urban fashion. Food is not a fashion, it's a necessity. All right, I have a few more questions, so I'll try and answer them as best as I can. You mentioned that because we buy goods that industries are polluting, but as consumers we have to buy the produce that we need. So the idea is that we buy what we need, and then of course the question becomes, what do we really need? Do we need that huge, immense air-conditioned car? Is it a need for you and me? So this, once again, I would say that this is the theoretical question, this is the philosophical question. What do we really need? Do we need clean air? Do we need clean water? Do we need to ensure that our children, 30% of Calcutta's children suffer from respiratory illnesses, and that's, you know, my child and yours. No one is exempt from that. So what is need and how we define need is something we need to revisit very soon. For any kind of farming, we need land, so we have to cut down trees. But first of all, we could, no, I won't be that radical, but you know, there are ways to finding land. And land, I do admit that land remains a problem. But for urban farming, if you look up the way people have undertaken urban farming all around the world, you will see that people are farming on rooftops, on balconies, on every single ledge available. There are restaurants, there are organic farms on rooftops of skyscrapers in New York City now. There is an orchard in the making in the middle of Seattle, which is a city. There are lots of ways to produce food. Land is of course the best option, but look at how we are utilizing land in so many other ways. So if food is our first priority, I'm sure we will find land. It's not a matter of choice. What is the main difference between CSA and organic farming? A CSA is a for-profit small business that undertakes organic farming. It is different from other forms of organic farms because it knows that it's not going to expand beyond what that particular piece of land permits. CSAs typically stay small. They support a small group of families. Last one. With half of India filled with slums and struggling for land, for mainly settlement, isn't? So once again, the question of land. If we were to have small community gardens in all the slums we have in Calcutta, it would be a wonderful way to sort of partially supplement the food that these people are buying with money. I don't know, everybody knows Pui Shak here, right? Or Lao. How much space does those things take? They produce really well, and good, fresh, nutritional food. It's not processed food that grows on the trees. So whatever you're getting is worth your effort, worth your time, worth the tiny piece of land you're using. Thank you.